Coming up on Nebraska Stories, a design nearly a century in the making, finding a greater purpose behind the game, carving a niche in Crane Country, and the healing power of art.
For nearly a century, the Nebraska State Capitol has stood as an iconic symbol of art and architecture.
We've got lots of room over here.
Certainly, the timing makes sense.
The Nebraska State Capitol is an active workplace in an artistic setting.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
How many of you are 10 years old? Imagine it would have taken your entire lifetime to build this building.
The Capitol's design was selected in a national competition from plans by 10 leading architects. One stood out from the rest, a design by renowned architect Bertram Goodhue. From the beginning, Goodhue had a grand plan with detailed drawings.
It's just apart from anything that had ever been done before. It's all carefully planned and laid out to tell a story of Nebraska and world history.
Not only was Goodhue's design innovative, so was his plan for construction. The new Capitol was built in 4 phases around the building it was replacing. By the time the new Capitol opened in 1932, its bold design dazzled the public as a masterpiece of artistic architecture. As the administrator of the Capitol Commission, Bob Ripley is responsible for the upkeep of the State House.
They should be able to work without much trouble. For Nebraskans who've been here many, many times, they probably have assumed whatever they see is the completed work.
From the outside, it appears to be finished, and actually from the inside, you would think it's finished. But it wasn't.
As a matter of fact, when they moved into the Capitol in 1932, it really wasn't finished. You wouldn't have seen the murals in the Great Hall, for example. You wouldn't have seen the murals in the North Rotunda. That was equally true of the courtyards, because if you looked at the courtyards, you would have seen paths converging in the center of the courtyard with a little round space. Well, you knew that that was designed for something, and that more than likely it was for a fountain.
The Capitol's construction spanned from before and then after the stock market crash of 1929. That changed the whole landscape, especially financially for the state.
The courtyards were never finished. There was always a financial issue, and so there was never any extra money. And during the years since then, they have finished many of the murals, but never went so far as to totally finish the Capitol, and that would be the 4 courtyards.
It's been a topic that's been considered by the legislature, well, at least in the early 2000s.
By 2013, a group of former state senators began meeting to seek a strategy to complete the Capitol courtyards.
That is the last element in the Capitol design.
We as former state senators absolutely love this Capitol. And as a combined force, many of the senators, want to do their part to enhance the building.
And I think the legislature had a real sense that they did want to finish the Capitol building, that they particularly wanted to finish it during the 150th year for the state.
The timing was right, I think, financially, and I think there comes a time where you say, you know what, if not now, when?
The former legislators convinced acting state senators to pass legislation in 2014. And then the Capitol Commission began carrying out Bertram Goodhue's unfinished design.
Goodhue died just 2 years into the 10 years it took to build the building. But in terms of the details, he had the vision for the building as a whole, and his office provided drawings to the Capitol Commission. Many of those preliminary sketches were just suggestions. However, Goodhue's office left us enough detail that we could clearly do the design for the fountain from their preliminary drawings. So we did that.
New architectural drawings were sent to State Brass Foundry and Atlas Bronze Casting in Utah to fabricate the designs. Soon after, ground was broken to begin renovation of the Capitol courtyards, including concrete foundations and service and drain pipes. 7 a.m., March 15th. The first of 4 fountains are arriving at the state capitol.
This stuff here he'll touch up when they get back.
Okay.
We'll unbolt it when we get it off the trailer. I'm the lead welder on them. I've done all the welding so far. The casting company casts and brings us the pieces, and I clean them up and there, make sure everything lines up. Each bowl has 28 pieces to it. It takes fitting all 28 pieces, and the challenge comes in making sure all the pieces stay level through the whole process and flat so the water will spill out. This piece is different because they couldn't fit it through the doorway. So I made it completely just like all the other 3 bowls, and then we cut it apart after it was all fabricated and done. Keep bringing it this way. I want it up on the blocks. The reason that we cut it on a zigzag, there's some structural members that go out for support. So we wanted to arrange our cuts to affect those thick areas and the structural integrity of the piece as little as possible. I thrive on worthy projects. It's a lot easier to put your heart and soul into something that is very important, because that's what makes the work worthwhile, and that's what makes it the difference between a mediocre piece and a great piece.
Once the welds are done, the raised portions are then removed and smoothed out with grinders and sanders by Bronze Foundry owner Stan Watts. Then, a patina, or chemical coloring process, is applied to all bronze surfaces to complete the fountain bowls. One by one, the remaining fountain bowls are brought into the 3 other courtyards. Each 8-foot fountain weighs 1,800 pounds, set atop a bronze collar. The base of each fountain is surrounded by granite curbs. And like most of the artwork in the Capitol, the fountains tell a story.
We chose to use 8 different icons of Native American culture that represent water. And that is consistent with much of the iconography that exists elsewhere in the Capitol.
To preserve Goodhue's original design of the courtyards, workers are relaying diagonal walkways of red sandstone with contrasting black and white paving tiles.
If you look down on those courtyards now, those black and white tile were in the rotunda of the 2nd state capitol.
The renovation is in its final phase. Today, workers are installing rolls of sod to complete the landscaping. Before the courtyards can be unveiled to the public, workers are running a test of the fountain's water system. Goodhue designed the fountains to conserve water. Once filled, water cascades over the rim and is recycled. September 23rd.
We are here to not only celebrate a fountain, we're here to celebrate the 150th anniversary of our statehood.
Today, the fountains are being dedicated as part of Nebraska's 150th birthday celebration.
It is truly an honor and a privilege for me to be here today as we put this final piece in place for the finishing of our Capitol building. So, without any further ado, I want to wish our state of Nebraska happy birthday.
Beyond the Field event today that we did brought local patients from around the state of Nebraska in to meet with players and coaches and go over what Shriners Hospitals for Children's mission truly is, and give them a purpose behind why this game is played in the first place, and understand what they're playing for come Saturday. Last year we had 35 patients here. This year we're expecting about 30 to 35 again. So we've really been able to increase that number and give a better ratio to the players and coaches to interact and really understand what these patients are going through and what Shriners Hospitals for Children does for them.
Start with practice in the morning, and we've been talking to the players for the last 3 days about what this whole experience means with theme of the day kind of things, and focusing on being selfless and having the courage to do the right things. And today was appreciation. And you start and they nod and they think they get it, and then you go through and you meet the kids and you start to talk to some of the guys and see just the change on their face and how they approach things. And they get a little quiet and they start to ponder some of the bigger issues and get why they're here.
A few things that happened, we had some of these great athletes trying to tie their shoe with one hand against an 8-year-old, and shoes done in 15 seconds, and 3 or 4 minutes later they're still struggling. They're trying to pick up something with a prosthetic that little Legos that they can't get 1 or 2 in a bag before the other, the 11-year-old kid's done. And so they just see that there's a lot more to today than just football.
Yeah, those are nervous. I don't know what those are.
First time walking? So you ran the first time you walked?
He's a kid named Carson. He's 13. He's got braces on both of his ankles and his legs since he was little, so he was born with it. It was pre-existing, but he's really, really bright. He's been sitting with me all day. I got to eat lunch with him. We played some games together, and boy, the kid's sharp. I mean, he knows everything and everyone. I mean, his mind is so sharp, and he is extremely smart. So getting to spend the day with him is really fun and really special. I mean, he's funny too. He just loves life, man. It's a blast.
It's really awesome that these guys are able to, that the players and the Shriners and everybody are able to come together to help the players learn why they're playing the game. And it means a lot because Shriners have helped me in such a big way, and it's really nice to be able to tell the players about how Shriners have affected me.
I know the week isn't about like the game, the actual game itself. It's about all this that's going on right now, and so just getting the chance to work and play with these kids, it's just been unbelievable. And I was humbled before that I got picked to do this, but now, like after all this, I'm beyond blessed. So it's just been an awesome experience, working with all these people and meeting all these friends, and just hearing everyone's stories and helping them out as best as we can. So.
Sandhill cranes paint the sky and cover the water along the Platte River in central Nebraska every spring.
Oh yeah, we saw a lot of cranes through the years, soaring up in the air, and beautiful.
Gene Gustafson has been a part of that scene his entire life. This 95-year-old longtime farmer has always lived near the river and has even served as a guide for crane watchers.
I don't know, it's just God's creation in the morning, and the sunrise just can't be beat. It is so beautiful, especially in my opinion, over the Platte River.
The cranes have served as inspiration for many artists. Gene is one of them. His canvas is a block of wood. From that, he carves out the cranes he remembers from those many mornings on the river.
I guess I kind of know what a crane looks like. And the closest you can get to what a crane looks like, the better off you are, with that.
Transforming the wood into a crane, though, has taken plenty of practice. Gene didn't start carving until the age of 74, when he took a class to learn how to do it. Since then, he's spent several hours, most days, whittling his time away.
What else have I got to do today, Don't have much of an agenda when you're 95.
That agenda has been a full one, though, for the past 20 years. He started carving ducks, and along the way has made his share of Swedish Dala horses and even large replicas of Noah's Ark for his grandchildren. But his attention always turns back to the cranes.
They're pretty special, you know. They're a crazy-looking bird, but, you know, they have their place too, you know, they sure do. Evidently, I'm interested in them or I wouldn't keep messing around with it, I guess, you know.
There's a structure and an order to Gene's messing around. He goes through 27 different steps before one crane is complete. Gene uses catalpa wood from trees his grandfather planted. He's currently carving from his 4th tree. He twists and turns that wood on his saw until he creates a familiar shape.
That will be the beginning of a crane.
Then he uses his knife to sharpen the finer points, and a homemade sander smooths the bird's rough spots. Pieces of coat hangers will serve as the legs, and he even adds kneecaps. Just don't ask him how he does that.
It's really a kind of a secret, you know.
Then he moves to another room in his basement, where he mounts the crane to a base built in the shape of Nebraska.
There's our crane.
All that's left to do is add some finishing touches with his paintbrush, and the crane is complete. It's a process he estimates he's done about 500 times. Some of Gene's cranes end up here at the Crane Trust Nature Center. It's the same place where he used to lead crane watching tours. Gene is still showing visitors the beauty of the cranes.
Here, I've got an outlet for them. If they, you know, if I want to keep going, I've got an outlet.
Just like those cranes on the river, Gene plans to keep coming back to this hobby he's grown to love. And after 95 years, he's learned a simple lesson he's happy to share.
You never know for sure what's laying back there that you would enjoy and that you might even be halfway good at, you know. Just go for it, you know. Don't just sit around, go for it.
Gene Gustafson is proof you're never too old to carve out your own niche in life.
I hope this holds it. That's fine. Perfect. What happens if you move over to your right a wee bit more? Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. All right. Time's up.
For the last few years, Scottish artist Mark Gilbert has been living in Omaha, crafting portraits of patients and caregivers at the University of Nebraska Medical Center.
I was scared rigid when it started, and I still am nervous as I carry on, especially when I meet somebody for the first time.
It's all part of a unique multi-year project exploring the connections between art and medicine.
I'd had this idea that we could use art to help us learn about care. Sometimes we talk about it in really complicated ways in the health professions, and I thought maybe art would help us scale down the way we thought about it.
Many patients are survivors of head and neck cancer.
So you just try and be as honest as possible and just kind of react to who's in front of you or what's in front of you. And so working with Jason, he's just really easygoing.
In 1995, at the age of 22, doctors found a cancerous tumor behind Jason Shu's nose. 12 surgeries later, Jason now works in the University Medical Center's Head and Neck Cancer Center, assisting other cancer patients.
He's a really interesting guy. The things he's been through and the way that he deals with it is fascinating.
Same room you were in earlier.
You don't think about them when you're making the picture, but all these things, they still matter. The picture will be richer because of that relationship. Many of the patients feel as if they're kind of giving something back by sitting for the pictures, that they're raising awareness.
He's not going to do a fake portrait. This is who I am, this is how it is, this is what we got to show for like the other 30,000 head and neck patients that are out there. Instill hope in others, don't give up.
I never tried to flatter anybody, but I don't think I could even if I tried, really. I think the paintings can be quite harsh, you know, and I've upset people in the past. I'd be working with people who didn't like looking in the mirror, didn't like looking at photographs, and yet they were going to let an artist interpret how they looked. You know, I'm in a very privileged situation to be able to work with these people during the most traumatic moments of their lives.
The patients are gaining a sense of resolution as their portrait is reflected back at them. What they had thought they looked like was actually quite different than what Mark reflected in the portrait.
You can see the sadness in the eyes, I think. It makes me happy to think that I've come as far as I have.
With a total of 100 paintings, drawings, and prints of caregivers and patients at every stage of the wellness spectrum, the Medical Center hopes to arrange a national or international tour of the collection. But it is this initial exhibition at the Bemis Center in Omaha that allows the participants and their family members to see the totality of the work for the very first time.
The eyes are a big key in all his portraits. You can really catch, like really the patients, what they feel or possibly what they've gone through.
Everybody's happy.
We are.
When the Medical Center approached Steve and his sister Glenna to participate in the project, he was dead set against the idea.
My first thought was, you have to be kidding. Here my sister is laying in a bed, just out of surgery, cancer surgery, or her jaw removed, and she's thinking about a portrait, and I'm going, this is insane.
And so I guess you know better.
I got to the point where I didn't even want to look in the mirror. I just didn't want to. But when I saw that portrait, it was like, you know, this isn't really as bad as you think it is. Here's a survivor, you're beautiful. Every time I would go to see Mark, I would feel better about it.
For Betsy Lomax, surgery to reduce the size of her stomach helped her win her battle with obesity and lose 150 pounds. But despite feedback from friends and family, she couldn't see just how much her appearance had changed.
People would say, gosh, you look so different, and I'd think, where? I mean, how? Because I would actually stand in front of the mirror and just stare at myself, and I wouldn't see any difference. And then when I saw the portrait that he was working on, I looked at that and I thought, who is that? And then I thought, well, that's me. I thought, wow, there is a difference, there is a change. Never felt pretty before. Felt big before. And when I looked at that, I thought, that's pretty. And it made me feel pretty. It was terrific.
Which was something we had no idea would come out of this. But
there were a lot of unknowns when the project started in 2006. The initial idea was to examine portraits of patients and caregivers to learn about the subtle dimensions of healthcare. 4 years later, the researchers have published a paper detailing the results of this unusual medical study, and what they found astounds them.
I think the first thing that we really noticed about those portraits was that they were very introspective, whether they were the patients or the caregivers. They just sort of pull you into the experience of the subject. And the person is a whole person, not a heart or a liver or a tumor or a pregnancy.
I think they saw a beauty or a strength or a quality that they didn't feel that other people necessarily saw. When they looked at the painting or the drawing, they understood Mark picked that up, and if Mark picks it up, it's likely that other people are as well.
Marty and her husband Rob both took part in the Portraits of Care project. Rob was undergoing treatment for cancer, and Marty was his primary caregiver. 2 years later, they are shocked by what the portrait revealed.
Rob looked at that portrait and he said, you know, in you I see a vulnerability and almost a waifishness. And I had been the strong one through all of this, you know. I thought, no. And I looked at it. There it is, there it is. And when I looked at him, I thought, huh, I still see the same person, but I saw an acceptance of the new normal. It was just amazing that Mark perceived all of that.
The medical study seemed a bit odd at first to Dolores Poulin, who is a registered nurse. But both she and her late husband Roger agreed to take part. Roger had ALS and had lost the ability to speak. The experience had a big impact on them both.
I didn't expect the emotion that I would feel when I saw the portraits. I was in a different place. And just the emotion, maybe so much in his eyes. His eyes were the first thing that ever attracted to me too to begin with. And he communicated so much with his eyes when he couldn't, you know, communicate verbally. Even though Roger couldn't talk to Mark, they had this relationship that was powerful.
I think the result of the exhibition was to help people maybe realise a wee bit more that it's kind of all part of life. It's emotional, but somehow it's not as bad.
For Mark Gilbert, artists and doctors have a lot in common. So much so that now he's pursuing a PhD in art and medicine at the University of Nebraska. Both fields require keen observation skills, and both can change lives.
It did illustrate how art can enhance the understanding of everybody, and how medicine and health and human condition can feed into art, or any decent art.
To see more Nebraska Stories, go to our website and like us on Facebook. Nebraska Stories is funded by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation. Sustained funding for arts coverage on Nebraska Stories is provided by the H. Lee and Carol Gendler Charitable Fund.